Let's go to the Times then, gents. And this was a bit of a twist tonight. Levy, Kane has buyback clause. Spurs chairman revelation to fans about Bayern striker, while Ten Hag bemoans injury crisis as United head to Germany. What do you make of that, Martin?
Yeah, it was very interesting to hear that. What's Harry Kane, 30-31? It's very difficult to predict what's going to happen in somebody's life, never mind their career, and what's going to happen to Tottenham and their manager and Bayern Munich and Harry Kane. The hope from Harry Kane's perspective is this: for the next 2 or 3 years, he's winning the Bundesliga and competing to win the Champions League. Whether at some point there's an emotional return to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to try and get close to Alan Shearer's record, we wait and see. What I would say is the player and the club have gone in hugely different directions at the minute. Tottenham are playing a different style of football without that reliance upon one player to carry them. And at the same time, Harry Kane is adapting to a different culture, a different football club. It was interesting to see a training shot. He'd done something wrong and he was getting flicks on the ears from all his teammates, which does suggest that he's settled in quite well. And I don't think he would want to be coming back for 2 or 3 years, although he does have a young family. I think, is it 3 or 4 children? So you never can tell in that sense. But Tottenham have gone in a different direction. I recall a few years ago when Ian Rush went to Juventus and didn't do too well. Liverpool spent the money really well on Peter Beardsley, Ray Houghton, John Aldridge and John Barnes, and were brilliant in his absence. And when he came back, it felt a bit like your time might have passed. This is an uncomfortable relationship. You're getting back together, although eventually he did go on to do well. So in the short term, I can't see it. It's maybe sensible from Tottenham because they perhaps don't want to see him come back sooner than expected. Maybe he's in 2 years' time. He's a Bayern Munich player and then he signs for a Man United or Manchester City or another Premier League rival. So it gives them first options, I think. But I think it's something for a little bit down the line.
OK, that's your take, Rob. The quotes here from a Tottenham Hotspur fans forum at the stadium taking place Tuesday night. He says there is a buyback clause, Levy said. He's always welcome back. Harry's a much-loved, valued member of the Spurs family, forever in our history. What's your take? As Martin's saying there, do you think perhaps the form of both parties suggests it won't be needed?
Yeah, I think the moment's gone. I mean, dare I say it, this is exactly the sort of thing you drop into a fans forum because it makes everybody feel good and feel like they can dream. I mean, the reality is, yeah, Teddy Sheringham did it and came back. But a buyback clause relies on the player, doesn't it? You can't force a player back. And Tottenham would always be in the market for Harry Kane, I guess, if he was available. It's not like they're barred from buying him. So it's just the kind of thing chairmen say to make fans feel a bit better when they've just sold their star asset for 100 million. That said, with Ange Postecoglou and the way they're playing, they don't need too much window dressing at the moment. You know, it's all going fine. I'm with Martin. They're sort of heading in different directions. Of course, it's not impossible, but you know, Tottenham would have to be a good enough club that they're close to winning the Premier League in 3 years, 4 years' time for Harry to come back, and that's not been the case in the last 20 years. So it's, you know, could happen in 4 years, but it wouldn't seem that likely. OK, well, let's get on to the Express as well. We'll stick with Harry Kane. His pre-match comments ahead of Bayern Munich against Manchester United. We'll pile on misery, says Kane. I think he just says he'll try and use the circumstances in their favour. It's a solid point, that, isn't it, Martin? It is a good time to play Manchester United.
Yeah, you'd have to agree with that. I mean, still kind of perplexed that there wasn't a bigger push from Manchester United to sign Harry Kane to make them competitive. 15 years ago, what we're looking at, Berbatov, Tevez, Rooney, Ronaldo were Manchester United's front four. Now you've got a young lad that Culhojlen that they just signed, and you think that's so inferior to what they were, and you then perhaps say that's the same all over the pitch. They seem like they're going through a major wobble because last year the home form was the thing that kept them going. Their away form against the top 10 teams was awful. They won they won the League Cup, and perhaps that papered over a couple of cracks. I don't actually think they played that well that day, and I've seen it suggested that they haven't played very well since. It's a club, I think we've said before, that just doesn't seem to have direction, and there are problems wherever you look. You can perhaps look at Erik Ten Hag in terms of, is he signing the right players? Are they tactically developing the way that they should be, that perhaps we thought they were going to last season? But at the same time, you're looking at a club that training-wise, recruitment-wise, ground-wise has fallen way, way, way behind all its rivals, and that's being borne out on the pitch at the minute. You know, they kind of seem to be stumbling around. Some players aren't quite fit enough. Varane might return, but is he a 20-25 game a season player? That's a lot to rely on him. They still don't. Marcus Rashford seems to have dipped back to his form before the World Cup, which is a big blow to them. There's Bruno Fernandes leading them. There's just so many questions around that club at the minute, and obviously the ownership theme seems to have been put to one side for the time being, which doesn't help at all. You just, at the minute, you don't see them getting, they looked like they were going to push for top four and stay there last season, whereas now you'd think other teams are starting to overtake them again.
Yeah, absolutely. On that subject, though, Erik ten Hag pretty happy with who he's got, apparently. Rob, back page of The Sun. No Kane, no pain. Eric happy with Højlund after losing out on Harry. References Rasmus specifically. Is that an unfair comparison, though, on the young striker?
It is unfair, and so I haven't seen exact quotes, but I mean, of course, he'd prefer to have Harry Kane to Højlund. That's not to be down on him. It's just obvious that to have an experienced striker who scores the goals that Harry Kane does in the Premier League would be the ideal striker for Manchester United to have, and he's the ideal guy to replace Lewandowski at Bayern Munich. I mean, it would be silly to say that, well, yeah, we would prefer this guy. They obviously went for Højlund because they either felt they weren't going to get Kane from Dnaiel Levy, because of his record of not wanting to sell to English clubs, or they really couldn't sort of stretch themselves that far. So obviously you've got to extenuate the positive, but no, any team, even Manchester City, not the replacement Haaland, but any team in the world would want Harry Kane.